Did you see the debate?
I did.
Did anything about that, what you saw, medically alarm you?
I can't say. I think it would be inappropriate to say that.
So Joe Biden is clearly suffering some sort of mental or medical dilemma. So CBS News wanted to get to the bottom of it. They brought in an expert, not just an expert on someone who's interacted with Joe Biden, but also he happens to be a medical expert. And when has he ever been wrong? You betcha. I'm talking about Tony Fauci.
It just looked like a bad night because my interaction with him was what I described in the book and what happened even subsequent to what I described in the book after I got out. He's very probing in his questions, very analytical, very calm about things. When you go in to brief him, Major, you better really know your topic because he's going to ask you very relevant questions. And he's very reflective on things and just doesn't jump out with conclusions or anything, but is very analytic. So my interactions with him, I have to say, have been very, very positive.
Did you see the debate?
I did.
Did anything about that, what you saw, medically alarm you?
I can't say. I think it would be inappropriate to say that, Major, because when you're just looking at someone on a one-shot basis, you just don't know what could happen. Did he have a bad cold? Did he take an antihistamine to make him, groggy or what have you? We don't know what went on. And I think it would be unfair and inappropriate to try and diagnose something from just a 90-minute clip.
A couple of things here. First of all, I love the fact, hey, every interaction I had with him, he was on the ball. He was great. He asked really important questions. He said, yeah, you know why? Because he agreed with you. He deferred to you. When he was running for office, Joe Biden literally said that he was going to let you have your way and run roughshod over everything with regard to pandemic policy. So, of course, you're happy with your interactions with him. He didn't challenge you. He didn't say, wait a minute, no, you can't do that. The Constitution will prevent it. So, yeah, great. Good to know that Tony Fauci thinks Joe Biden is Johnny on the spot and on the ball. But then the whole thing with the guy, hey, he could have been on a cold medicine, right? That could have affected him like that. Maybe, but we'll remind you, Karine Jean-Pierre was specifically asked about that.
You just reminded us that President Biden had a cold on Thursday. What medications was he taking in the days or hours leading up to the debate?
And I know that question has come in a couple of times to us. He was not taking any cold medication.
Was he taking any medication that would have interfered with his
He was not taking any cold medication. That is what I can speak to.
That never gets old. Was he taking any cold medication? No, he was not taking any cold medication. Well, was he taking any other medication? He was not taking any cold medication. Next question, please. Anyone? Anyone. Not you, James Rosen. Anyone else? Yeah, the last thing that Fauci said there, which I think is important, very important to point out, when he was asked, did you see anything as a medical professional that caused you any concern? And it's shocking, actually, that he said, yeah, he really should have been wearing a mask since he was so close to Donald Trump. He didn't say that. But he said it would be inappropriate, right? That's what he kept saying. It would be inappropriate for me to say anything. Let me tell you something. If Anthony Fauci's expert opinion in watching Joe Biden for 90 minutes, if his conclusion was that Joe Biden looks just fine and there's nothing wrong, he would say that. You see, that wouldn't be inappropriate, would it? Would his answer be, inappropriate? I shouldn't say anything. If Anthony Fauci thought Joe Biden looked great, why would it be inappropriate for Anthony Fauci to say, I think Joe Biden looked great? If Anthony Fauci didn't detect anything on that stage in Joe Biden's behavior that was an indication of a medical problem, then why would it be inappropriate for him to say, I don't see anything that indicates a medical problem? It wouldn't be inappropriate. The only thing that's inappropriate is for him to say, yeah, there's something wrong. See, that would be inappropriate. And that's why he didn't say it. But we've got the cold medicine. We've got the bad night. We've got all of these other explanations. And then while Karine Jean-Pierre was out there giving all these talking points, he had a bad night. Let's turn the page. No, it wasn't cold medicine. I can't talk about any other medicine. Let's just move on. While she was blithering on with that, unbeknownst to her, an hour and a half later, Joe Biden at a fundraiser in Northern Virginia actually delivered a brand new excuse, which I bet she would have loved to have had at her press briefing. Here's the brand new excuse.
The New York Times this morning is taking a look at President Biden in the weeks and months before his debate performance. The paper reports, quote, Mr. Biden was drained enough from the back-to-back trips to Europe that his team cut his planned debate preparation by 2 days so he could rest at his house. In the weeks and months leading up to the debate, several current and former officials and others who encountered him behind closed doors noticed he increasingly appeared confused or listless or would lose the thread of conversations. This is all from the New York Times. The paper continues, quote, like many people his age, Mr. Biden, 81, has long experienced instances in which he mangled a sentence, forgot a name, or mixed up a few facts, even though he could be sharp and engaged most of the time. But in interviews, people in the room with him more recently said the lapses seem to be growing more frequent, more pronounced, and more worrisome. The Times notes the occurrences, quote, seem more likely when he was in a large crowd or tired after a particularly bruising schedule.
That's it. They're trying to point to this bruising schedule of his, that he was just worn out because of all of his travel. Now, again, Karine Jean-Pierre, hearing about this late last night after her press briefing has got to be like, well, it would have been nice for them to give that one to me. I could have used that one when I was lying at the briefing. More lies, the better, guys. If Joe Biden at this fundraiser last night said, yeah, I was really tired. I was traveling too much, going back and forth to Europe. That's what took it out of me. If he says that to the big money donors at the fundraiser, why didn't he say it to his own press secretary? Well, it's because it's a lie. He's just coming up and saying whatever he has to cover his butt. They continued this morning on MSNBC. This is a spokesperson for the campaign.
He did not have his best night. He said it at a fundraiser last night in McLean, Virginia, that he was tired. You've noted on this show, Mika, many times that, he traveled twice around the world. He was exhausted. He did not have his best night.
He didn't have his best night. He didn't have anybody's best night. So let's unpack this a little bit, as we like to do, so we can point out all of the lies. He did not travel around the world twice. He traveled from Washington, D.C. to Italy, Washington, D.C. to France. All right. Now, it's not nothing, but those are like 8-hour flights. Okay. Number one. Number two, and again, not around the world. It's across the Atlantic twice. Okay. Number two, he's got a private plane. He has got a little bit more than a private plane. He's got the greatest private jet on the planet. He's got Air Force One that has a king-size bed in it. Flying to Europe back and forth over the course of 2 weeks, I guess can be rough if you're flying coach and you have to, sit upright the whole time. There's a reason why you pay a little extra for business class or first class, right? They even have the lay-down beds now. You feel pretty refreshed the next day. Imagine having a private room with a king-size bed in it, okay? So don't give me this, he traveled back and forth. By the way, she left something out. At the fundraiser in McLean, Virginia that they're referencing, where Biden claimed that it was his travel schedule that took so much out of him, he also claimed that he almost fell asleep on the debate stage. He almost fell asleep standing up while engaging in a presidential debate with television cameras and lights all around. I've been really tired in my lifetime. I mean, super tired, right? And you say, I'm dead on my feet. I could fall asleep standing up. But I assure you, I could pull 2 all-nighters and be up for 48 hours And I would not be in danger of falling asleep standing up at a podium during a live television debate. But Joe Biden said he almost fell asleep during the debate. And then there's this. Yes, Joe Biden went to Europe twice in the span of like 7 or 10 days for the G7 thing and then for the Normandy thing, right? But then when he came back, he had over a full week of rest and recuperation at Camp David. That's after, by the way, spending a couple of days at the beach. Then he goes to Camp David and he's sequestered. You didn't see him for an entire week. We had like an attempted coup in, I believe, in an African nation, or was it an Asian nation? I'm not sure. We had murders at the hands of illegal immigrants in this country, including one right here in the DC area. We had international incidents, and Joe Biden never once emerged from his hole at Camp David to give a public statement. He was that sequestered. He got to rest, recuperate, and prepare at Camp David for an entire week after the travel. And he was still dead on his feet, tired, so much so that he was going to fall asleep on the debate stage. That's their excuse now? That's what they're going with? The cold thing isn't working. Oh, and you heard the report. He had to skip 2 days of preparation so that he could rest. This included, by the way, daily afternoon naps at Camp David during his prep time. So now he's missed 2 days of prep time so he could rest and recuperate from his trip to Europe, and he had to take afternoon naps, which suggests he was not prepared for the debate. But do you remember 2 days ago, one of the excuses that was floated was that he was over-prepared? You know, the reason Joe Biden looked like this, sometimes this happens, you get over-prepared. This man is like a supercomputer in his head, and he's got so much facts and data in there that sometimes it's hard to process it all and get it out in just a 2-minute soundbite. The problem with Joe Biden is that he's just too smart for all of us, and he was over-prepared. That one didn't work, so now he wasn't prepared enough because he had to rest because he went to Europe. But here's the thing, if I may. If you're excusing your disaster of a debate with Donald Trump to be president of the United States, if your excuse is, I'm sorry, but I had to travel to Europe twice and then come back and then do the debate, and it took a lot out of me. Understand what message the Biden campaign is delivering to the American people. That the president of the United States should not be expected to be able to answer questions about himself, his policies, and his vision for the country if he's coming off the heels of a trip to Europe. They're telling us that the president of the United States cannot actually function properly if he's traveled to Europe twice in a 3-week span. I don't know about you, but I think this is part of the job description. I think a president is supposed to actually represent us, be our head of state, engage in diplomatic meetings all around the world, and still function. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's why we spend so much money on that airplane. So you can do the job of president. And they are literally saying he didn't have a good debate because he had to travel too much and he had too much work to do as president of the United States. The job is too much for him, is what they're telling us. And I think we should listen. One last clip here as a Democrat operative went on CNN and tried to spin around this and make it look like Joe Biden's just fine. He's still tired because of his work schedule. And watch the journalist here, the host from CNN, just, it pains her. It pains her to have to engage in this conversation.
If the president needs to find schedule accommodations to help to facilitate his focus on advancing our country on behalf of next generations, let's find those accommodations. But let's be clear about what's at stake.
But Senator, I mean, with all due respect, look, I love a good nap, but the presidency is a 24/7 job. I think that is alarming to people, that even for debate prep, that is something that President Biden requires?
Is that a question, Abby?
Is it alarming
I
to
hear you
are
in
you
terms of,
concerned
you know,
about you
I
don't
love
have
a
that
good
concern
nap
at all?
too.
You're not concerned about that at all?
Look, let's look at what the president has done.
The answer might as well have been, dude, he's running against Trump and we can't let him win. So just shut the up. Don't ruin this for us, okay? You're helping Trump out, which is really all that we're seeing right now. This is really all about Donald Trump. And more importantly, as usual, it's about you. They hate the fact that you have a say in who the president should be. And even more so, they hate the fact that you're going to vote for Donald Trump. And so they're willing even to support a cadaver, anyone but Trump. But the cracks are showing and their lies are obvious and none of it's working. And it's been a long time coming. We've been waiting for it, but it is pretty fun to watch. And I want to remind you, the next several days and weeks are going to be historic, what we're witnessing right now. Never happened before. So enjoy it and stick with us as we cover it together.